The anti-Israel crowd is out there by the millions, pushing for war, for hate, for incitement, for murder, for genocide, and then screaming genocide when the side they want murdered prevails in war. Israel is committing war, and war is not genocide. War is one of the worst things human beings can do to one another. Civilians suffer. Children are always killed and harmed in war. They and other innocent people are the casualties of war. The only way to keep civilians, including children, out of harm's way is to not start wars and to not incite for wars. Civilian casualties are increased when one side squanders billions of dollars to enrich their leaders and to build terror tunnels and networks below ground from which to wage war without building a single bomb shelter for the civilians living above ground. Civilian casualties are increased when one side wages war and deliberately uses civilians as human shields to hide behind and beneath, and civilian structures including hospitals, mosques, schools, apartment buildings, and so forth from which to wage war. The anti-Israel hate-filled mobs scream, "Shame on you," while they shamefully call for war. Many scream their support for the phony so-called resistance, which is not a resistance at all. The word resistance is used to make the effort to murder, rape, kidnap, and commit other atrocities on as many Jews as possible sound lofty. The anti-Israel crowd uses every excuse in the book to justify the genocide and murder they seek. The long history of Jews is a history of getting blamed for everything, while the side that murders and commits atrocities against Jews is held blameless. The commandment to not murder continues to be defied by Jew haters. The commandment to not bear false witness continues to be violated over and over by Jew haters as they fabricate every lie imaginable in order to demonize Jews. The endless effort to demonize Jews leads to tragic outcomes. It is not enough that there was a Holocaust. It is not enough that Europe's most advanced nation followed an incompetent, evil fool, a demonic lunatic drawn in by the seductive poisoning of having a demonized enemy to hate. All of it led to Europe destroyed, with over 70 million killed and millions more permanently crippled and wounded for life. The Jews of the Middle East and North Africa, Israel's majority population, have their own history of persecution, expulsion, theft of their lands and property, massacres and pogroms. They know that there is no place in the world other than Israel for them. Yemen, Iraq, Libya, Syria, Lebanon, British-controlled Palestine, Egypt, Algeria, and more are places where their ancestors would be slaughtered if they still lived in those places. They and all the people of Israel know that their enemies do not want peace. The people of Israel know that their enemies seek their extermination. October 7th was the point of no return. All of the many years of demonizing Jews, teaching endless hatred and incitement, and then having the opportunity to harm defenseless civilians, including babies, children, girls, boys, old people, and more, showed where the road to hate, demonizing, and endless incitement leads. When Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and others said that they want to murder Jews, including babies, they meant every word of what they said. This should have already been known from the many years and times Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and others blew themselves up in order to murder babies, children, defenseless people inside of Israel. On October 7th, defenseless people of all ages were raped, wounded, kidnapped, murdered, beheaded, mutilated, tortured, burned alive. Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and others from Gaza took many videos themselves of their atrocities. The anti-Israel crowd still finds ways to defend, deflect, excuse, or justify the atrocities, or to even blame Israel for the atrocities despite the enormous forensic evidence, including the videos the terrorists themselves took and all the people that survived and witnessed the massacres. October 7th is what the anti-Israel crowd wants more of. If they cared about the lives of Arabs, now called Palestinians, they would want the war, the hatred, the incitement, the demonizing, the terror to end. They would recognize that Jew, Arab, and others share a small piece of land where they need to live together in peace. The way forward is to lay down the sword. Lay down the sword does not mean a temporary ceasefire so that Hamas, Hezbollah, and the others can rearm, regroup, and do their killing on another day. October 7th should have so horrified the world that Hamas, Hezbollah, the Iranian regime, and all of the others would have been immediately denounced the world over. All of the hostages should have been returned in the days following the massacres, and that should have been the end of Hamas. This could only have happened if there had been, in fact, it's a lot of rain out here. It's This could have only happened if there had been, in fact, an enormous outcry and if we lived in a sane and just world. Instead, Hamas, backed by the Iranian regime and their allies, joined the war against Israel on October 8th, and millions of people the world over defended and even rejoiced in the atrocities committed on October 7th. Now the world is left with a nightmare that the anti-Israel crowd spurs on.